love the phrase, aim for the moon because you might land in the stars, right? Either way, we're going to teach you that your dreams are big, but are they really big enough? I'm your host, Donnie, Boivin, where I help people find their inner badass and just go for it. Most of my clients tell me what I do is really take the people who have the it factor and help them run like hell.
This episode is brought to you by Point Blank Safety Services, a security guard company that is protecting us on our freeways and our local things. These guys' company has grown so well because of the dedication to their officers, being these off-duty guys taking care of these corporations and everything else, that they started a nonprofit called the Blue Family Fund. Now, this nonprofit, what it does is raise funds for higher education scholarships for dependents of law officers. They also raise funds and for financial assistance for the families of these fallen law enforcement officers. How cool is it that a company can grow at scale, change the life of police officers and their families by giving them additional income, but also provide opportunities that if an officer is lost in the line of duty, that their family can be taken care of. Guys, consider checking out Blue Family Fund and Point Blank Safety. Both great companies. You can check them out at bluefamilyfund.com and pointblanksafety.com.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to this week's podcast. And today we're going to really jump in and focus on what is really holding you back in your life. And it's going to be all wrapped around this whole concept that you're probably playing a lot of defensive life strategy versus playing an offensive life strategy. So we're going to focus a lot on how did you get there? How did you get to this defensive mindset? What is this defensive mindset? And how do you know for sure you're actually playing defense? When I say playing defense, it doesn't always resonate with people. So why don't I explain what playing defense really means? I think a lot of people go through life and they're playing this game of how do I not lose what I have versus how do I go create something to get what I want. So think about it this way, is a lot of people go through life and they're thinking, I have so much money in the bank or I have this house, I have these bills, I have things that I want to do, I want things I want to do for the kids. So they're always playing this kind of budget game, not with just money, but with their time and everything else versus going from the mindset of I have this, I want this, what can I create to actively go get this? So let's start talking about what defense is and how we got there. Growing up as a kid, I grew up in that cool middle America household. It wasn't the top end, wasn't the middle, it was really the lower end of it. You guys have heard this before, dad drove trucks, mom worked in factories. So we weren't really poor, but we did live that paycheck to paycheck lifestyle. So we grew up that, you only had so much money to spend between this pay period and the next pay period, so you had to figure out what those things were you were going to do. And we never were really on that mindset of how do we go create things, how can we sell, what can we do more of so we can go get the things we want. So we are all a result of our upbringing. There's a lot of influences on our lives that create us to who we become. And God love teachers out there, but they are some of the worst influences on our lives because they teach us from the perspective of their beliefs. Same thing we get from our parents is however your parents are brought up is that's how they're going to probably bring you up. Whatever their influences in life were are going to be the same influences you get growing up through life. And your parents probably play defense versus offense as well. They're playing, how do they keep their assets? How do they keep the things in their life versus losing them? And it all comes from, there's always been that time in your life when you wanted to buy something and you had the money saved up, and then that oh shit tragedy happened, and now you just depleted whatever funds you saved up, right? A lot of you have that little slush fund, and, my wife and I did it for years where we'd save a few dollars back here and there. We'd have a nice little pool set up, and then a car would break down, right? Or a career change would happen, or, something, a family member got sick or something, and all of a sudden you depleted all that funds. And what we did at that moment, and that's how one of the reasons you know how you're playing defense, was we did at that moment is we drained that fund that we'd raised all that money in to pay for whatever that emergency was. if we would have been playing with an offensive mindset, we would have thought, okay, what can I do now to go raise that money so I can pay for it versus pulling all those money out of that fund? And so I did a lot of research and thought on, how do I know if I'm playing defense in life, right? What can I put in as kind of those metrics, those measurements to say, all right, Don, you're moving forward, you're doing the right things, but this move you're making is currently forcing you into a defensive mindset. So I kind of came up with, what I did in my 20s, what I did in my 30s, and what I'm doing now. And what I'm doing now is really from the offensive standpoint. So we're going to, what I did in my 20s and 30s. And, from my 20s, it was just do what you can find. I think that really describes what my 20s was like. I took jobs that, because I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do, I just took whatever job was in front of me. And I was worried to go make a lot of money, not because I didn't think I could, but that's because of what I knew. Mom and dad being that middle America parents, they made a certain level of income, and the money they made, because I didn't understand it, because of their defensive mindset, because I didn't understand it, I thought was a lot of money, right? So when I went and got jobs, I went and got careers, everything else, I was aiming for their level, because that was my knowledge, that was my comprehension. So when I was negotiating interviews and this, that, and the other, I negotiated for ranges that they were in, because that's what I understood. What that did is it gave me some cool life experiences, but not the life experiences that taught me how to kick ass in life. They taught me how to protect what I had. So I got my average car, I got my average apartments, I got my average clothes, I got my average stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that, guys. But I was completely a direct result of the influences in my life. So because I was wrapped around living how they brought me up versus challenging life and looking at it and going, okay, could I do better? I was a direct result of their influence. And then, of course, I was a guy raised, with all my teachers. My teachers absolutely despised me all except for Miss White. And Virginia, I know you're going to listen to these things, so love you, mean it. But most of my teachers, they always kind of said, Don, you're never going to amount to anything. You're not going to be anything great. We're passing you on because we don't want you back the next year, which, I didn't give a shit about. School to me was pointless, and I still don't get it. But, because of those type of things that kept me in that constant state of good enough was good enough, playing a defensive mindset, it never challenged me to go for it other than I was going to prove all these bitches wrong, because they're idiots and dumb and they're working for a $40,000 job. I thought that years later, not the time. But, my 20s, as I continue to move forward, looking back, I always thought that I was really going for it. But as I really look back and look on it, I wasn't really going for shit. I was just going for what's right in front of me. And it was, okay, paycheck comes in on Friday. What can we go party and drink and do and everything else? By Monday, you're broke, right? And now you're like, shit, I don't have groceries. I got to pay a few bills. So you scramble together, you pull out the change out of your ashtray, and you figure out how to just get by, right? And you don't know how it works. It just every month it seemed to work. I mean, I can even remember in my 20s, trying to decide which bar to go to on Friday night because they had the free buffet of food, right? So I could save a little money on on dinner and groceries because I could go get the free buffet. That is a perfect case of playing defense. Is you're trying to contemplate how you're going to save money by eating free food to spend twice as much money on the alcohol and booze, and at that time probably cigarettes because I was a dumbass. But try to do all those things to keep the money you had to spend on other stupid shit you didn't need in the first place, right? That's the ultimate case of playing defense. And then we kind of flash forward into my 30s. And my 30s was when I thought that I was adulting. And man, looking back at some of those, let me tell you, I was nowhere near being an adult. Hell, I'm in my 40s now, and all I can think of is I still have the mindset of an 18-year-old. One of these days I'm going to flip and grow up. I don't know when it's going to be, but I think my wife wishes I would hurry up every once in a while. But, my 30s was my hard-hitting sales years. Those are the years that I really, really got after it. And I was cocky as hell. And even though there was some times in my life I made some fantastic money and did some phenomenal great things, it was always that thought process of good enough was good enough. And I always seemed to kind of hit these weird plateaus. And these plateaus would come as I would race and I'd go super high, do a lot, accomplish a lot of great things. And then I would just like flatline. And I would flatline because of that defensive mindset. I was so scared and these are things I didn't recognize, but I was so scared to freaking really just get after it and go for it. A lot of it, I think, because, I was afraid of who I'd become if I really challenged it and go for it. But it really showed me that every time that I put myself out there, because I was more worried about losing the shit I had, I wouldn't fully go all in. I would kind of put one foot in the water and then pull myself and reel myself back in. So that's when I started trying to figure out, okay, well, how do I start recognizing when I'm absolutely going for it? And when can I recognize when I'm holding back and not doing the things I do? So I came up with kind of 3 major things. And these 3 things are very specific to help you know that you're playing how to not lose versus playing how to win. So the first one is the keeping up with the Joneses. And dude, my 20s and 30s, I was absolutely horrible at this. And what keeping up with the Joneses is somebody buys something cool, you've either got to go buy the same thing or one-up them, right? And so I was never the big car guy or anything like this, but I always had, tchotchkes and books and RVs. That was one big thing for me, but anytime somebody was out doing whatever or buying whatever, and, sometimes it could even be a vacation. Somebody come back and they talk about a vacation they went on. I'm like, well, shit, I want to go on a vacation. Right, so I can talk about it and brag about it, so then I'll be spending the money I didn't have on shit that I didn't need to be doing in the first place, right? That's that defensive mindset. I loved it when I lived in the suburbs. You'd look down the street, and as soon as somebody bought a new car, given it a week or two, and everybody down the street would one by one start buying a new car, right? That's that keep up with the Joneses mentality is, if you got it, I've got to have it. No, I'm going to have it bigger and better. And, you had people living in a $100,000 house driving, with a parking or a driveway with $50,000 to $75,000 worth of vehicles in it, right? And they're trying to live large on life, and they're all broke as shit trying to figure out, how can they get by on a week of hot dogs and macaroni for dinner. But you're going to look at them and say, oh, they're rich as hell. And when they do that keep up with the Joneses mentality, that defensive mindset, they're more worried and concerned by how everybody else looks at them instead of looking at life of how awesome can I be? How badass can I actually go for it? Because they're influenced by the outside perspective versus their own damn mindset. And that's where I spent a lot of time in my 20s and 30s is I was more concerned about what everybody else thought about me versus what I could accomplish in life. And it was amazing that as I look back on those years, and dude, there's a song by Jimmy Buffett that said, I've made enough money to buy Miami, I've just pissed it away so fast. I think that describes my life is I spent it as fast as I got it. And it was that keep up with the Joneses mentality, and one of the biggest things that pops out to Elizabeth and I when we talk about this was, we travel on our stomachs. So, we've got trips where we bought like 1 or 2 tchotchkes, but we spent thousands of dollars on meals because we wanted that all-in experience. And those are the type of things where you're playing for defense. So number 1 is to keep up with the Joneses. Number 2, to know for sure you're adamantly playing defense, is the living a lifestyle paycheck to paycheck. And here's what I mean, is I was notorious, especially in my 20s, is no matter what I made, I could tell you down to the exact penny how long that money would last me and what I'd have to do to get that $20 tank of gas to get me by for the week. So when I was in my 20s, I lived in this shady-ass apartment in St. Louis. And my little Ford Ranger that I drove, it cost me $20 a week in gas. I know, try and do that shit nowadays, but $20 a week in gas could get me from to and from work. I lived 4 blocks from the office. And that would allow me to spend $20 at a little grocery chain named Aldi's. Okay, and Aldi's is a place where you put a quarter in the cart, and dude, it's great food, but $20 you can fill a damn cart. So for $40, I could get by from a week to 2 weeks, and that would cover everything. And that would allow me to go, hang out and do like one happy hour night, and maybe one nice dinner out. But I had that down to an art, so when the bills would come in, this, that, and the other, I knew my game plan. The only problem with that paycheck-to-paycheck lifestyle like that is when something comes up. Somebody's like, oh, let's go to Six Flags, or let's drive down to the coast, or let's take a trip. And you're like, cool, shoot, yeah, I'm in. So then you spend all that money that you had so strategically budgeted to get to the next week. And now you're getting home, you're like, well, shit, I'm just not eating this week. I'm just going to, get by just good enough. So that paycheck to paycheck mentality comes by because you go back to number one. You're trying to keep up with the Joneses. And you're playing that defense because you're trying not to lose what you have versus trying to go out and actually get it. And creating wealth and creating new strategies to wrap your head around it so you can continue to move forward and be better and stronger and more badass. And if you want to know for sure if you're living paycheck to paycheck, look at your accounts, and I want you to go back and just look at how many times your balance got down to like $10, $20. You know what happened, right? Look at those times where it freaking drained down and you're like, holy shit, I hope that bill doesn't hit. Give me one more day, right? That's when you know you're living that paycheck to paycheck lifestyle. Trust me, been there, okay? So the third one is the impulse buying, okay? And dude, my wife still gets on me for this one. Is impulse buying is a real thing to know that you're playing defense versus offense. And trust me, the stores out there know this is a problem with freaking almost everybody in society. As you go through the checkout line of any store, they've got the signs down to an art of knowing what shit they need to put on the aisle so you're going to buy. Why do you think 5 Hour Energy sits right there? Because by the time you've done all the shopping through whatever store you're in, you're exhausted, you're worn out, you look over, oh, there's 5 hours of instant energy. I'll just spend $2 to get that. Well, it's those impulse buys that really force us to play defense. Because those $2, those $1, those $5, we don't see it, but they add up. Next time you go through a grocery store, or God forbid Walmart, but next time you go through a grocery store, when you get home, what I want you to do is look at that receipt, go down it, and circle the number of things that cost less than $2. And what I want you to see is most of those things that cost less than $2, you subconsciously are looking at it and going, oh, that's only $1. Then look how many items you have on your cart altogether and realize that all those dollars end up to you walking out paying $150, $200 for your flipping groceries versus going into that grocery store with a game plan of, okay, Monday night I'm going to make this dinner, Tuesday night I'm going to make this dinner, Wednesday night I'm going to make this dinner, here's all my toiletries and things I need, going in with a game plan. Nope, you're going to play defense because you want nobody to see that you need to have a shopping list because you're way too good for that shit, right? You're going to go in there and just do the impulse buy, and then half the vegetables rot in your refrigerator. You get shit that you never cook. You're just kind of going through that osmosis motion of how do I buy shit that I don't need in the first place. And oh, look, beer's on sale. Well, it's not really on sale. They just put a sale sticker on the damn thing, but you think you're getting a deal, so you buy 3 cases instead of the 1, right? It's all the stupid shit you do on impulse versus doing it on purpose. So it's that whole thing. You're going through life playing this game of defense, keeping up with the Joneses, living paycheck to paycheck, and it's all because of that mindset of how we were raised. And it's all based on, here's how I live my life, and nobody's going to tell me how to live my life, right? Nobody's going to tell me that I'm not going to be good enough, or I can't spend my money, I can do whatever I want whenever I want. Well, the truth of the matter is, you can. More power to you. That's your lifestyle. But if you keep playing in that mindset, then what I want you to do for me, and I mean this sincerely, is quit bitching and moaning that you don't have anything. quit bitching and moaning that you don't have the life that you don't, that you wish you were living. If you really wanted to go after life and live the life you really want to, then you would stop playing a defensive strategy. You would start playing an offensive strategy. Start looking at your life and going, am I playing defense right now? Is the activity I'm doing helping me grow and succeed and kick ass in life? Or is it actively holding me back from moving forward? So keep looking at it as, what am I doing? How am I doing it? Is it playing defense? How can I change this thought process up to really get to an offensive standpoint? Okay, so there's also this bonus idea of how to really figure out if you're playing defense in life. And that's by really figuring out where your passion has been for the last however many years you've been on this earth. And there's two cool ways you can look at to see where your passion has been. This is a great thing I learned a few years ago. What I want you to do is I want you to look at two particular things. I want you to look at your calendar, and I want you to look at your checkbook or checking account. For you youngins out there, the checkbooks are those things we used to write in, right? But I want you to look at your calendar, and I want you to look at your checkbook. And here's why. Those two things will tell you what you've been passionate about. Because it's going to tell you not only where you spend your time, but what you're spending your money on. And if you look at those two things, the defensive mindset is going to have you doing a bunch of mundane things that aren't growing your life. They are sustaining your life. They are keeping you at the current level that you're riding at. Your checkbook will tell you what you're spending your money on. That allows you to see where your passions lie. Like my wife and I mean, dude, there was one year we got that app called Mint where it categorizes all your spending. Holy shit, I'm embarrassed to tell you, and I'm not going to tell you how much money we spent on freaking eating out. It was stupid and in the tens of thousands of dollars. Now that takes into account for groceries and stuff, but we did not realize how much money we were spending on food. Now, granted, we love food, but that's that defensive mindset of not only did we not realize how much money we were spending on food, but we didn't even take into account that we could have just made those meals at home and probably had a lot more of an intimate conversation with each other. But it was that impulse lifestyle. Another good way, just kind of on the impulse lifestyle, to know you're playing defense is I'm betting your dinner conversation with your spouse goes something like this. Hey, honey, where do you want to go out to dinner? I don't know. Where do you want to go? I don't know. Where do you want to go? And then starts bouncing back and forth. That's that freaking defensive mindset. And what it is you don't want to make the bad call, right? And if the other person makes the call on that restaurant, then it's not your fault if you overspend for dinner. Right? Versus being very more purposeful. And as soon as they say where you want to go out to dinner, make a suggestion. Well, why don't we go to the Mexican restaurant down the way? Why don't we go to the Italian restaurant down the way? Now, if they shoot it down, right, offer another suggestion, right? But try and keep moving it forward. But that defensive mindset says, I don't want to screw up. I don't want to do or say the wrong thing. But if you go back and you look at your checkbook, you look at your calendar, it'll tell you what you're really passionate about and what you're focused on, so that you can figure out where you're playing defense in life. But I don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer all through this thing. So one of the things I want to do is give you a real quick tip on how can you start getting more offensive oriented. How can you start playing offense on a little bit better level? And for me, it's a really quick phrase that I keep, and I keep it on the back of my phone, and it just says future focused. And what I mean is, very often, we're looking at life in the right now, where we're currently at, versus looking at where we're going. And when we look at life right now, that can be a very scary thing. Because looking at life right now may be, oh shit, I got to pay bills. My bank account's low. Or I don't have enough money coming in to cover whatever I need. If I focus on the future and where I'm going, I'm not saying spend money like you're living in the future. I'm saying focus on where you're going, and that helps you get that mindset of how do I get it? How do I go after it? How do I find it? How do I, create it? All those things, because you're focused out there versus focused on what's happening now. Because sometimes, especially if you're just coming up in this game, focusing on now is depressing as shit, right? Because you are a result of your habits, a result of your upbringing, a result of everything that's influenced you up to this point. So if you can start focusing on the future, like I swear, one day I will be on huge stage speaking to freaking large-ass audiences and inspiring millions, because that's where I'm going. But right now, I'm getting this whole ball of wax running. And, I'm an impatient son of a gun, dude. I'm like, dude, I want that now. I mean, it's like when I went through the Marine Corps boot camp, it was day 17 in, I'm like, why the hell do I got to go through all this shit? Just make me a Marine already. But that's not how it works. You got to go through the shit to get where you want to go. And dude, going through the shit sometimes is a bitch. So if you don't start focusing on the future and you stay focused on where you're at, you're going to stay exactly where you're at playing defense. So as we kind of went on this journey today of talking about defense and living that defensive lifestyle, kind of want to recap some of the discoveries we made along the way. There's a lot of times when I hear somebody speak that I've taken a lot of notes, man, and I know sometimes even I talk really fast, and I've written a whole bunch of shit down, and then I've written fast that I don't always understand my own notes. So let's do a quick recap of kind of, what we all covered today. So playing defense in life is where you're living that lifestyle of not going with it. You're living in the now. You're living in this particular moment versus staying very, very future focused. And the 3 ways to know that you're living a defensive, lifestyle or a defensive career is the first one is you're trying to keep up with the Joneses. You're trying to buy the shiniest, brightest new thing that everybody else has got, but maybe one up them. Maybe you're an early adopter that's got to go buy the new iPhone when it comes out, and you're justifying, do I eat groceries for the next 2 weeks, or would I go spend $1,000 on a phone? And so the second one of that whole talk for today is the living the paycheck to paycheck lifestyle. It's really that figuring out that, how much money do you need to go from the 1st to the 15th of every month? Or maybe it's how much money, how can you stretch that paycheck to last the 2 weeks before the next paycheck? Or, what are those things you got to do instead of start looking at how can I go create more money, more revenue, more profits, more anything so I can go do more, be more, and be greater. And then the third one is the aggressive impulse buying. It's where you're walking through places without a game plan and you're just buying the stupid shit to buy the stupid shit. We talked about it, like the rotting stuff that's in your refrigerator that, dude, just go to your refrigerator now and clean half that shit out. You're not going to eat it anyways, so just throw it away. Honey, I'm talking to you. But as you go through it, it's that buying all that stuff that you don't need. And I know Albertsons is great at this, and this is not a dig on Albertsons. It's a brilliant marketing strategy. But they do these ones where you can go in and you can buy, a chicken breast. Buy one, get 3 free, or buy one, get 2 free. It's a great, great deal unless your brother-in-law works in a butcher's of an Albertsons, and he's like, dude, it's the same damn price if you buy it no matter how much. They've just marked it up so it looks like it's a great deal. So what you'll do is you're actually buying, all 3 for $14 or $15 or whatever else. And if you bought them by themselves, they'd be like the $7 a piece or whatever all the way through. It's just a good marketing strategy. But because you don't have that game plan going in, you just see the special or sale and you're all in and you get it, and you just buy it. So to summarize everything in here is you're going to have to start really looking at your life and decide that you're no longer going to play defense. You're going to start playing offense and start creating ways to create more revenue streams or ways to create more income. Or maybe it's ways to eliminate the shit in your life that you don't need in the first place. What are those things you can cut out of your life so that you're not destroying all your assets and funds and everything else? And also think about this way. What are the things that I'm investing into? How are you investing in yourself so that you can grow and learn and be greater and become more awesome? Along the lines, how can you become more of a badass? And that's another way that this just hit me, to know that you're playing defense is you're not investing in yourself, right? That's one of the worst defensive strategy of all times. If you're not spending money on making you better, then you're moving backwards in life. because we're just becoming a result of the influences in our life. Before I get out of here, my ebook is out. That's Not How You Journal, Jackass, is my ebook out on my website at donnieboivin.com. So make sure you jump over there. I'm so stoked about this. I've already had a bunch of downloads on it and gotten some really, really great feedback. I'm going to start getting some reviews up there. I'm getting ready to hopefully launch this out on Amazon. I'm going to still give it away for free out there. Just want the exposure. But go check it out. If you've struggled with journaling in your life and you've struggled with, that it's something you've always known you want to do, I promise you, go read this book. It'll be a game changer for it. Guys, I appreciate you. We'll catch you on the next episode. Stay out of trouble.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. This was a lot of fun today. I'm going to do something I haven't done before on these shows, and I've actually made a download cheat sheet for this episode where you can go in and take an assessment of all 3 steps in the playing defense of mindset and how to remove yourself from it. So you can go to my website at donnieboivin.com, D-O-N-N-I-E, B as in boy, O-I, V as in Victor, IN.com, and look for downloads. And in there, you're going to see a free download for a playing defense worksheet. Go check it out, guys. As always, thank you very, very much for your emails, your comments. Please always send me an email with what you thought of this episode. Share it out with all your friends on Instagram, and come visit us on the Facebook group, Donnie Success Champions. Talk to you soon, guys. Thanks for your support.